Welcome into the Baseball Insiders. I am Adam Weinrib, joined as always by Fansided. It's Robert Murray. I was told Buster Posey might be co-hosting this episode, but not to worry about my job security, so I guess I won't. The Wild Card Round of the MLB playoffs is here. Go Padres, go Brewers, and Fansided's own Robert Murray is in Milwaukee to cover the start of that series as the Mets come to town, having won one of the craziest games in regular season baseball history yesterday. Robert, thanks for joining me. We got a lot to get to and not too much time to cover it, so we're going to cover as much as we can for you all. But before we get into predicting these current series, that was an historic way for the Mets to prove that these Mets can win in Atlanta.
Oh, absolutely. Like, that has been one of their bugaboos. I think that's the word I'm going to use for it in recent memory here.
Yeah.
But they finally did it, and they did it in a huge way, in one of the most unbelievable ways. That game was, I watched it at the airport yesterday, and usually whenever there's a baseball game on, there's only people at the bar who are watching it. It was legitimately everybody in my terminal or at my gate who was watching it. It was thrilling. It was exciting. First you thought the Braves were going to win, then you thought the Mets, and then you thought it was going to be the Braves. And then Lindor hits that 2-run homer in the ninth inning off of Pierce Johnson, and it ends up, I mean, it was so nonchalant the way he rounded those bases. It was a pretty damn cool moment for baseball. It was one of the best games that I think I've ever watched. And if that's a sign of things to come for the Mets or just for this postseason as a whole, we might be in for one of the best postseasons that we can recall in some time.
Yeah, MLB's whacked out scheduling brought us some pure gold yesterday, and it's going to put the Mets and the Braves behind the eight ball a little bit heading into their next series. If you want to chat with Robert and I between shows, again, a reminder to join us in the Discord at either the Rumor Mill tier, where you can get your questions in between shows, or the All-Star tier, where you get priority responses in the chat, private Zooms. We got to schedule our next one. So much craziness going on these days, but we welcome all of you. So please join us and ask us if you have any questions. Also, subscribe to The Moonshot, which is our weekly baseball email newsletter where the Fansided MLB team, including the one and only Robert Murray, break down all the biggest stories in the big leagues with humor, insight, and behind-the-scenes info. And perhaps they will be writing on The Moonshot about how Edwin Diaz faced Jared Kelenic with the game on the line, forgot to cover first base. He was safe. A run scored. 3 runs came home on the Ozzie Albies double, and the Mets still won that game and made the postseason. One of the most shocking karmic turns of events I've ever seen. When something like that happens to you, you usually don't win that baseball game, but that is the power of Francisco Lindor, who sent his Mets to Milwaukee. Robert will see them later today in a bit. Then when the clubhouse opens, it's tough to pick against them these days, but I kind of feel like I am inclined to do so. I don't know where you stand heading into this series.
You know, this is a difficult series, because if it was Brewers Diamondbacks, I felt pretty confident the Brewers were going to end up like winning that in 2. But the Mets, they present a really unique challenge here. They've been one of the best teams in the second half of the season here, and they're coming off of a really tough travel schedule here. They were in Atlanta, then they were in Milwaukee. Atlanta played a doubleheader, and now they're immediately going straight into a series against the Brewers here. I am really curious to see exactly how much of an impact that has. But the Mets, they're a tough out. They're a really tough out, and they have plenty of pieces. I think they've done a really nice job of maximizing some pieces on pitching, defense. Okay, interesting. Sorry. And
yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
And like it's something that Stearns prioritized in the offseason is he really wanted to improve the team's pitching and defense, because that's how he ended up maximizing that roster in Milwaukee and getting them to where they were. And I'm kind of leaning toward the Mets in this series. I think they're riding the momentum right now. The Brewers are well rested. They're going to have their frontline pitchers going while the Mets are not in that same position. They're going to be tired, but I think the Mets are riding some momentum, and that huge win after yesterday, I think, could carry them through this series and maybe even deeper into the postseason. So I reluctantly say Mets.
My problem with the Crew is they're in the same spot I feel like they somehow end up in every year, where I'm like, hey, don't sleep on the Brewers. Like, I love this roster. Don't forget the season they had. But then you look at the bracket and you're like, can they beat the Mets right now? Red hot? I don't know. And even if they do, am I picking them against the Phillies? No. So I wish I could send the Brewers further into this postseason. I am going to pick the Brewers in this first round matchup, but I am going to pick the Phillies in the DS. Of course, we'll get to that in a couple of days now. We got some serious wild card business to sort out first, and that includes the team that lost the first game to Francisco Lindor, Heartbreak City. Somebody named Grant Holmes has to start the final game of the regular season. No Chris Sale, as we suspected when they played it slow with him and when his velocity was down. And we were like, there's something wrong with him. And the Braves were like, no, he's good. He's just, he's wearing sunglasses and he's being carried around by Eddie Perez and Javi Lopez. But he's good. He's definitely not dead. He is not pitching probably in the wild card series. But Holmes delivered something I haven't been able to say that much this year as a Yankee fan. And now we move on to the Padres and Atlanta Braves. No Chris Sale. We know we love the Padres. Potential World Series contender stuck in the wild card round. I assume that this was maybe a series where you were already leaning Pods, and the Sale thing just kind of throws it over the edge.
Yeah, this one's definitely leaning toward the Padres, and I give credit to the Braves for even getting to the postseason because the injuries that they've dealt with throughout this entire season with Acuna, with Spencer Strider, with Austin Riley. I mean, there was Michael Harris missed a bunch of time. The fact that they even got here is impressive, but I think they're going to get steamrolled by the Padres. I really do. I think the Padres, they're easily have been one of the best teams in baseball in the second half. I think their record is the best or is around the best. And they've got a really good thing going there. I think they're going to win that series in 2. I think the Braves are going to have to ask themselves some really difficult questions in the offseason. I mean, Max Fried is very likely going to leave in free agency because we've seen what's happened when some of their star players have reached free agency in the past with Freddie Freeman, Dansby Swanson, and now Fried is going to hit free agency. So that's going to be one of their biggest questions they have to ask. But give me the Padres in 2, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Give me the Padres in 2 as well. I would say, though, Ian Anderson has the potential to do something very funny today if he is, in fact, the person who gets the nod. I'll turn to a series now. It's significantly more a pitching talent, but a big question that just got answered in the affirmative. It seems the first series of the day is the Tigers and Astros, the fighting Tarek Skubals against Framber Valdez. This one hinged for a lot of people on Yordan Alvarez's ability, which can he play the outfield? Probably not. That changes the roster construction a little bit, but his presence makes such a massive difference. And as we're learning, he is in the lineup at DH today. As we're also learning, no Justin Verlander on the roster. Not entirely shocking, especially in a short series with so much other pitching. Hunter Brown, Ronel Blanco, Yusei Kikuchi. These guys can help you out more so than Justin Verlander can. For me, Alvarez is such a difference maker that I feel like because he is active and available, this, I'm so sorry to say, smells like the 2022 Mariners to me, where the Tigers come in hot. They have a late game 1 lead. Can they do it? Oops, there's Yordan. He undoes it, and that momentum is parlayed into game 2. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he can't come to the rescue this time. Maybe he's physically limited and he's in there as a little bit of a decoy. But I foresee some late game shenanigans today, and I just can't pick against the Astros.
It's very rare I'm on this podcast and I disagree with Adam Weinrib, but I'm going to disagree with him right now. And that could either make me look like a really smart person or it could make me look like an idiot. Which one of those two it's going to end up being is anybody's guess. But I'm betting against the Houston Astros. I think the Detroit Tigers come into the series and win it. And I think it's going to end up happening in 3. And I am a huge believer in AJ Hinch's postseason experience. I think that's going to end up being something that is really crucial here. Obviously Joe Espada has been under Hinch and Dusty Baker in those Houston Astros clubhouses, so obviously he's got plenty of experience there. But this is his first postseason as manager, and that's a different beast. And I think having a guy like Tariq Skubal go in the first game like that, I think is going to be a huge, huge deal for the Tigers. I think they win tonight. Tomorrow, I think they lose, and then I think the Tigers end up pulling out in game 3 and advancing. And again, maybe I could be wrong. This is a pretty ballsy pick. I understand that, but give me Tigers in 3.
I get it. I love it. I am hoping for the Tigers to open up the playoff brackets just a little bit, but at this point, I cannot bet against the Houston Astros and Yordan Alvarez breathing fire, which is what he seems to do on a regular basis. One more series to project before we get into some quick hits about the big news, because, oh, by the way, there are some executive shifts, plenty, that dropped yesterday. We're going to talk about them a little bit, give some insight, but got the Royals and O's, and I think the Orioles disappointed a lot of people this year with the way they were unable to parlay their momentum into a regular season that matched the expectations. Jackson Holiday comes up. Oh, it's about to be unfair. Never mind. He's on the roster as sort of a pinch runner defensive replacement. Never really established himself. The Royals are able to go with Cole Reagans and Seth Lugo and Brady Singer if needed, and Michael Lorenzen out of the bullpen. This is a really good rotation and a team that struggles offensively. And if Bobby Witt Jr. and Sal Perez aren't feeling it, then it's an Orioles and 2 situation, and we forget about the whole disappointing second half. But I have the Royals in this series, and I also have the Royals scaring the Yankees a little bit moving forward.
Wow, look at you go over here. I didn't see that coming. Mm-hmm. We're disagreeing again, Adam. We're doing it. I can't believe we're doing this again. I'm going with the Orioles here. I really like your Royals pick. I was very tempted to go. I was tempted to go with the Royals here, but what you said about Bobby Witt Jr. and Salvador Perez, if they're not going, then they're not gonna score runs. They got Vinny Pasquantino coming back today, so I mean that's gonna end up helping them. But he was supposed to be back in about 8 weeks. He's coming back early, so it remains to be seen how effective he'll be. But I think the Orioles have the talent that's going to kind of overwhelm the Royals. I think they win in 2. And yeah, we just go from there. But that's currently what I'm thinking. I also think that the Orioles can end up giving the next series some issues as well. So we got the teams in this series providing issues in the next series, but we just have the different teams. So again, we'll see who's right.
Look, I don't think there's a single team that the Yankees can honestly say, like, oh, I want to see them. That'll be great. Like, I can't wait to welcome in the division rival Orioles. Oh, yeah, Seth Lugo in game 1, feed it to me. Like, I'm all over it. No, I think that's a tough matchup regardless. And I think the next matchup determines a lot about the roster because, hey, if Cole Reagans is going game 1 at Yankee Stadium, Ben Rice is not starting at first base. If Corbin Burns, maybe Rice is. Otherwise, Oswaldo Cabrera. The Yankees have no first baseman entering the ALDS regardless. They're just sort of messing around. So we'll see. I think the Yankees woke up the Orioles at the end of the regular season and then put them to sleep again in the series finale in the Bronx where Giancarlo Stanton just sort of drubbed them. I'm still feeling the Royals. We shall see, though, and it all begins today. 4 games. What more could you want? I mean, I guess the more that you could want is serious seismic shifts in front offices across Major League Baseball entering the postseason and before the offseason. Buster Posey in, Farhan Zaidi out. We know we're going to get questions about this regardless, so we got to cover it. This was foretold a little bit, and by a little bit, I mean a lot, with the Matt Chapman contract extension. We try to figure out, hey, solid ground, Buster taking more of a role, maybe a roadmap to get Farhan out of there, maybe by next season. Who knows how fast this is going to move? Turns out extremely fast. I tell you what, I understand that the Giants are somewhat stuck in neutral. Free agency has not been their bag these last couple of years. They bailed on, they collected all the Boris clients, but not for a long time, just for a good time this offseason. But you better be right about this if you're the Giants, because it's going to be really hard if you have to fire Buster Posey. So what does this say about the team's change in direction ultimately?
I think it's a move that had to be made. I think, especially with the word leaking out about the Giants and their ownership or / chairman being unhappy or universally unhappy with the job that Farhan Zaidi has done. I think they had to make a change, and they ultimately did. And I think this move makes a lot of sense. Like, Posey is as respected in San Francisco as it gets. I think he's going to help from a recruiting standpoint. I think he's going to end up being a new voice. He's going to be more player friendly, because I think how the Giants funneled players between AAA and the majors wasn't exactly something that these guys liked, because they were optioning anyone that they were optioning anyone to AAA. And I think that kind of it had the wrong kind of impact or feel in the clubhouse because of it. But it's a move that puts ownership there in a bit of a really unique situation, because I think you said it perfectly. Buster Posey, you can't fire him. He is a franchise icon, someone who is extremely well respected in that entire area. And if he ends up not succeeding, maybe he goes back to an ownership role, or maybe he goes back to a consultant role. I mean, who knows exactly what would be the case there, but I think it's a smart move. You can definitely see the logic. It's a total 180 from what Farhan was in San Francisco, and I would look out for the Giants to add some veteran people around Posey, because he has no experience running a front office. Now he's the president of baseball operations in San Francisco, and I think some moves to address that front office will be soon on the horizon. So, and by the way, I'm seeing things here about where is it? What is it? Canyon saying Shelton and Ben next for the Pirates. No, that is not the case.
But Andy Haynes is gone, part of the sort of mass coaching exodus yesterday. The Cubs lost a bunch of voices. Hitting coach Jim Adduci, Mike Napoli gone. Blue Jays hitting coach dismissed. Pirates fans saying, why not us? Well, there's Andy Haynes, and their bullpen coach is gone. Any word on what to expect from any of those clubs that are now dealing with empty spots on the coaching staff?
Yeah, the Pirates informed Andy Haynes yesterday morning that he was being let go. And I don't know. I have mixed feelings on it. I think Haynes is actually a really good coach. I know there's people, specifically Pirates fans, who are going to kind of come at me for saying that. But he's a good coach. I was around him in Milwaukee, got to see the impact. I've heard what Christian Yelich and some of these other players who have worked with him have said. So there's Canyon saying it. I'm telling you, this is not an Andy Haynes issue. This is a Pittsburgh Pirates issue. Is they don't invest in, like, their payroll is so small, and they don't invest in impact players. And it's just a really, I don't know. I think you will not see changes, or like actual changes with the Pirates, until they end up increasing payroll. And with Bob Nutting as the owner, you never really know what or how likely or how possible that is. And it's really unfortunate, but this is not an Andy Haynes issue. I think this is a Pittsburgh Pirates issue overall. And whoever steps into that role, I think is going to deal with some of those same challenges. So I know you all wanted Andy Haynes gone, but the problem still exists, and it's a small payroll. So I'll leave it with that.
No, I disagree. The bullpen coach had to go. He should have told the bullpen to pitch better. That's on him. He should have said, hey, you got to be better at being bullpen. Hey, David Bender, why aren't you closing? Close more. But unfortunately, that strategy was unsuccessful. One more thing we do have to hit on before we sign off and get Robert to the old ballpark, where there will be more on-site coverage hinted at. The Chaim Bloom transition, which we thought to be accurate. We knew John Mozeliak was on his way out after next season. We knew Bloom was setting things up. There were some rumors of, hey, suddenly some jobs in the Red Sox front office are available. Maybe the people that used to occupy those positions under Bloom are moving to St. Louis. And it became official yesterday. So now the questions, obviously, it seems like we're headed for a big market reset where St. Louis is eyeing, hey, Paul Goldschmidt, that relationship is over. Nolan Arenado, any takers? Sonny Gray feels pretty likely to move. What are you hearing about how this hard reset year is going to go, and how long exactly will this reset and rededication last? Because there was a pretty bombshell athletic story this week where a lot of people were like, we've gotten off our player development game and we don't know what happened or how to get back on it. So Chaim Bloom knows that.
Oh, he absolutely does. And it was a really good story by Katie Wu of The Athletic. She does a fantastic job covering the Cardinals over there. So good job by Katie. But moving on from Mozeliak after his contract was out, and then moving Chaim Bloom into that spot, I think that was, the writing has been on the wall from the get-go. And as soon as he ended up getting added, everyone in baseball knew right away that Chaim Bloom was going to end up being the replacement for John Mozeliak. Like that, it was crystal clear that was coming. As far as the moves he's going to have to make when he's running the front office, that he's going to be working with a smaller payroll than what the Cardinals are currently dealing with. And whether he has to move on from some of these big contracts when he is the executive remains to be seen. But this offseason is going to be about shedding some salary. And I think that's going to end up opening the door for conversations about Wilson Contreras, Nolan Arenado, Sonny Gray. Like any of these guys who have big contracts will be listened on in trade talks. I don't think anybody with a big salary is off limits. I don't think they'd be willing to move a guy like Jordan Walker, because I know there was rumors about that at the deadline, but I cannot see the Cardinals being open to that. But as far as the Cardinals go, it's going to be new leadership under Chaim Bloom. I think he's going to do. He's entering a job that's very similar to what he had in Boston. But good news for him is he's not going to have to trade Mookie Betts this time. So he's got that going for him, but still operating with a smaller payroll. I feel bad for the guy because he's actually a very, very, very good executive. So he's going to be entering in kind of a tough situation again.
Well, he should trade for Mookie Betts this time if he has the chance. That's always helped teams in the past. Looking forward to seeing what that looks like, but looking forward more closely to seeing what it looks like today when 4 different wild card series kick off. I like using kickoff, even though it's a football term. Sue me. Don't sue me. Please don't sue me. Robert's got to get to the ballpark for the Brewers Mets. I'm going to ride with the Brewers there. We will see. We'll have reports from the ground. Subscribe to the Moonshot. If you haven't, join us on the Discord. If you haven't, Robert Murray, hell of a week, hell of a month. We're only just getting started.
That we are. I am about to go ahead to the ballpark. So it's going to be the first day of my entire postseason. So I cannot wait. It's going to be a blast. We're going to bring you guys as much information on this podcast or in the Discord and on Twitter as I possibly can. So stay tuned for that. I got some stuff in the works that's pretty exciting, so we'll see. But I appreciate everyone who tuned in. Adam, I appreciate you, and we'll see everyone back here on Thursday.
We sure will. Right back here on Thursday. Good job, everybody. Stay tuned on timing, obviously. Let's see what happens to the Brewers and Mets. But go baseball, go playoffs. Let's have ourselves in October.
We will. Thank you, everybody.